Welcome to the 23 Mile Podcast. I'm Kayode, and joining me today is Yasen Dimitrov. He is the co-founder and chief data and analytics officer at IntelligenceNODE, an e-commerce intelligence platform. Over the past 11 and a half years, he and his co-founders have led the startup on an interesting journey of ups and downs, culminating in a recent acquisition by IPG, a Fortune 500 company. So we'll hear more about this. Before founding IntelligenceNODE and the ensuing chaos typical of startups, Yasin was on the path to partnership in a relatively far more predictable field of consulting at Boston Consulting Group. So we'll hear what led to that transition from the consulting world to startups. He is a long distance runner, a passion we share. Welcome to the 23 Mile Podcast.
Hi everyone, and Kayode, thanks for having me.
Thank you. So first off, congratulations on the acquisition. How does it feel to be in the company of where tech startup founders who have achieved a successful acquisition?
To be quite honest, it's been a very long journey for us. So we started the company with my business partner in 2012, and we started the company with an idea, as everyone founder does, to start something, get something up and running, and then in the next 3 years, get the unicorn status and exit, which is not what actually happened. We started the company, as I said, 2012, and it's been a long journey. So more than I would go two ways. In my mind, I'm conflicted. I can say it's been a long journey and it's been very difficult, and that's all true. But I think at the end, we look forward as entrepreneurs and we make sure we focus on the positive. We had a great outcome. IPG is a fantastic home for us, and I think we'll delve into why we chose IPG in a little bit as well. I believe in making sure that we succeed in the acquisition, making sure that our journey doesn't finish with the acquisition. So on and on, I would say it's been a fantastic journey, and we hope for the best going forward.
Hopefully everything goes well from here. An acquisition, like you said, an acquisition does not mean the end of the journey. It's just a transition to a different phase. Let's start at the beginning. Tell us about growing up. How did your early childhood experiences influence your career choices and then startups?
So first of all, I grew up in Bulgaria, in a very normal middle-class family. Both my mother and my father worked the entire life. My father was a late entrepreneur, so he has his own glass fixing company. I think he started his entrepreneurial journey when he was 55, 60. Very late start, but that was an inspiration. But to be quite honest, I had a very normal childhood, and I can start drawing some parallels of how the childhood kind of impacted me, and why why I took on entrepreneurship, etc., etc. But there is nothing really there. What I'm grateful to my parents is that they gave me a great childhood, and they set me up to make my own choices in the future. So I wouldn't kind of link those two, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. And then when you finished from college, you went into consulting. Was this a natural path for you? Did they just fall in your laps, or this was something you really wanted when you finished school?
No, it was completely random, to be quite honest. So I finished my master's in finance in London, and then kind of I applied in a bunch of companies. Client Knowledge was a company that kind of took me on as a junior analyst, and then the passion for data developed there. I would mention one name, Justin Trenner. He was the CEO and founder of this company, and he was an early mentor for me. He wasn't the easiest character to work with. He has his kind of peculiarities, but I did learn a lot in this small startup that was very focused on foreign exchange consulting. And I think what was great is it was a very focused field that got me into an area of actually focusing on and making sure that when you go into a certain topic, you actually exhaust it and make sure you're a specialist in that topic. So for that, I'm very grateful for this particular Actually, I want to kind of open bracket here, which is very important for folks that are listening. Coming back to what I said about Justin, he wasn't the easiest character, but you as a young professional have two choices, right? One choice is to say, yeah, I'm not going to work for this, XXX, right? But you have another choice and say, okay, I'm actually learning here. So it doesn't matter that you disagree with certain aspects of how the company is run, et cetera, but I'm actually learning here. And that's what I keep saying to all our employees during town halls. If you don't feel that you are learning in intelligence node, then just go do something else. Otherwise, what's the point? We are a startup. We are not the highest payers out there. So the only thing left for you is to learn. So if you don't learn, just go do something else. And that was kind of a great experience early on in my career. Then I moved to Expand Research. That was acquired by Boston Consulting Group. I think within a couple of years of me joining, not a lot. I wasn't the key reason why they were acquired. So I'm not gonna pretend that I am. But again, great experience there. And then I had exposure to the bigger company where you have a little bit more politics. You obviously have a very set path in development. But why I left Boston Consulting, coming back to your original question, and Expand Research was exactly the reason I mentioned before, right? I stopped learning. And I left them at a time where we didn't have kids with my wife. I just got married. So it was pretty much the best time to start. I started my journey with a friend of mine that I actually met in my first company, Cloud Knowledge. So it's been a fairly standard journey for an entrepreneur, right? I started in a small company, then I moved to a bigger one. I experienced both worlds. I said that maybe a bigger company is not the right way forward, and then we started something ourselves.
Two things you said that really resonates with my own career as well. One is just that good luck of having a tough boss. A lot of younger ones today want life easy, but I was really lucky as well to have people who pushed me across my career. And I won't be where I am today if I didn't have that. And the second one is, yes, so the tough boss is external, but the learning one is really internal to you. It's something you decide, this is going to be my most important thing. It has shaped my own journey as well, pursuing knowledge rather than money. So yeah, thanks for that.
Especially early in your career, you have to make that choice. You have to trust that you'll make the money in the late 40s, right? So I think that's a smart thing to do.
So yeah, and we're grateful for that. So let's hope, at least for those listening, some of that comes in handy for them. Moving on to IntelligenceNODE, which you founded with your former colleague. What was the origin story for that? What sparked the idea?
So we met in Plant Knowledge in my first company, and I left a few months after he joined. I went to BCG. Then he left to India to start a couple of other startups. But in between, we kept talking, and in between, he was the best man of my wedding. So we became friends. We became after that business partners, obviously. But it was a mutual journey where we were both not sure what to do and how to do it. And then it was quite lucky for both of us that we were IntelligenceNODE happened at the right time in our lives. During the early days of the company, it was 2-3 people, and then we were living in a small 1-bedroom apartment in Mumbai, right? So you kind of have to like the person that you start with to kind of persevere this. Obviously, after that, he kind of he stayed in India, and then I was running operations from here in Dubai. But that early experience kind of gave us the baseline for us to operate together and make sure that I'm responsible for one thing, he's responsible for another thing, and make sure things are getting done.
I mean, a co-founding team that stayed together for 11 years. That is remarkable. I mean, I was looking at the data earlier on, and I think it's maybe the average lifespan of a co-founding relationship is less than 4 years. So you guys have bucked the trend then.
I think it's important, right? Because the baseline that we created was very strong, right? First of all, we were friends. We started as friends without any agenda. Then obviously he became part of our personal life, right? He became a best man. And then I think what was really important was to, at least in the early stages of the company, to be together, right? To make sure that we iron out all the difference that we might have. And then I think what really helped as well, after this early stage, we actually went different ways, right? We went different cities. So I think you have to have a right mix to make sure that that longevity is there.
Yes, points to note there for all those who are looking for co-founders. So tell us more about IntelligenceNODE. In terms of the idea that it is today, you provide AI-powered real-time price data to e-commerce. That much I know. So tell us more. What are your customers? What's your team like today? And what's the value proposition?
So ultimately, let me just take a step back and tell you kind of why we started the company. So both of us were professionals in the financial services industry, and what we discovered by talking to people, and then after that, Sanjeev going to work to another retail company, was that actually what was missing was the outside in view in retail. And more importantly, what was missing was the real-time outside in view. So our initial mission was to create a Bloomberg terminal for retail. That's what we pitched to our initial investor, our first investor, Bloomberg terminal for retail. And just keep in mind that that's happening in 2012. And when we started pitching to different folks, they were looking at us, first of all, in retail, they were asking us, what is Bloomberg, right? And what is real time, right? Real time for us is 1 month. That's real time. Real time price changes is so we were very, very early in the journey. Now real time access, real time price changes, and those kind of activities. So I wouldn't say they're common, but at least for retailers that want to be relevant, they understand and they know they have to go there. In the beginning, it was a struggle. That's shown in our revenue growth, right? We were slow starters, to put it mildly. All right, we started pitching to India. We realized that India is not ready for this. Then we moved to Middle East. We realized the Middle East is not ready for this. Then we moved to Europe. We kind of discovered that Europe is kind of ready for this, but not really. And then after 2-3 years, we actually focus on the right market, which is US. But ultimately, what IntelligenceNODE does is it provides competitive intelligence to retailers.
I picked on two train of thoughts there. One is the value proposition, which started as a Bloomberg for retail, but then ended up somewhere else. But then also the geographic pivots. How did you manage these pivots? They're not easy pivots to make. How did you experiment and figure out, okay, we need to do something else? And how did these pivots end up working in real life?
There's no shortcut to that. You need to go talk to clients, fail miserably, and then keep believing that what you're doing is the right thing to do, and then keep searching for the best fit for your product. I mean, we've spoken to so many people. To be honest, it's the same thing as investors. We've spoken to so many different customers in different regions, and we've been to so many conferences where people were just kind of saying, no, come, let's talk next year. Let's talk next year, etc., etc. There's no shortcut for that. It's a trial and error, at least because we were a small team. Right? If you have a large team, then you can do everything at the same time. But it was me, Sanjeev, my business partner, and a couple of more folks actually going out and attending conferences, making the cold calls. And at the end, we got, funnily enough, out of our break was one of the biggest retailers in the world in US. So from struggling to kind of get a small lingerie player in India to getting a retailer with 5,000 stores in US and a global presence, it was It was it was a monumental change for us.
How did you pivot from this startup based in Mumbai to successfully navigate the US market? This is something I think every startup everywhere, even for me, when I ran a tech startup, always wanted to do, but it is incredible hard. But you guys managed to do it. How did you make that move and then acquire a large customer from there?
I think in US in particular, first of all, I think one word: air miles. Right, you have to be there. You have to go to conferences. You have to make sure that people see you. You have to make sure that you have kind of the right value proposition. I think what's great about US is that people will give you a chance, right? I think it's very difficult in Europe, or for that matter in India or in Middle East, right? People like logos in these regions, right? If you say it's BCG, you're BCG, then you can charge whatever you want, it doesn't matter, right? But if you say that you're IntelligenceNODE, it's going to be very difficult to get somebody to sign a check, even a tenth of what you're going to pay for BCG, right? And in US, what's great about it's a culture, right? And that's why everybody wants to get there. People give chances, and obviously you have to deliver, right? You can't just have a subpar product and hope that a key customer or a very big customer will be paying for your services. You need to deliver, but you'll be given a chance. If you're persistent, if you go to the right conferences, if you pick up the phone, even we've reached out on LinkedIn to folks, and folks have replied. That wasn't unusual. A couple of our biggest contracts are LinkedIn outreach. And it's not one kind of advice here. It's not a generic LinkedIn campaign that you're running. When you're starting the company, this thing needs to come from me or from my co-founder, a direct message saying, let's have a conversation, right? And in some cases, people will think, oh, but if somebody if I see a message that comes from this, from a C-level executive, they will immediately say it's a small company, so it's kind of I don't want to talk to them. That's absolutely not true. People do take chances. And even now, right, even in my kind of day-to-day activities, I do try to kind of, if I see a LinkedIn message, I do try to return the favor, if that makes sense, right? But don't be afraid. Don't be afraid that you're going to look small if you as a CEO kind of reaches out. People will respond. Not everybody, obviously, but people will respond.
Thanks a lot for that. Let's talk about one of the other points you made earlier around fundraising. If I managed to raise about 10 million across four funding rounds, including a Series B, that is also, I will say, a phenomenal achievement, because the graduation rates as of today for startups, even between seed and Series A, is as low as 20%. What did you do right to go as far as a Series B?
So we raised a little bit more. There were a couple of funding rounds that were not announced, but it was, the total number was about 20 million. But that's I guess not important in this context. But I think we were very lucky with the investors that we got at the end, because our investors had a very clear KPI. Actually, all of them. Our initial kind of a seed investor, or as venture, was very clear on show me the clients, and not only show me the clients, but show me clients that are paying. If you get, I don't remember what was the number, but I think it was like four paying customers, right? If you get me 4 paying customers, then I'll seed you. That was that was his easiest spot. And his due diligence, right, was show me the product the customers are consuming, open up your bank account, show me the money that you're getting. That was the due diligence, right?
Amazing.
I need to make sure it's they're paying you, so you must be. I mean, nobody gives you money because you're pretty, right?
Yes.
If you get customers that pay you, then I like your space. I think that obviously he did some due diligence on the side, that market sizing and all these kind of activities that every investor does. But at the end, the ultimate test was: do you have customers, and are they paying you? That's it. it wasn't about how much are they paying you. Are they paying you? Because again, he made an assessment that now, if they're paying you now for this service, for this scope, that scope will grow and that customer will expand. So that was our seed experience. And then our Series A experience, where we got NEA as a lead investor, was, to be honest, very similar. Right? They were focusing on client growth. There was more focus there. There was more focus on tech. So what tech are you developing? How can you scale this, etc., etc. But overall, it was very clear. Are you onboarding more customers and are they paying you? And if you think about it, it's a very simple approach, and that kind of makes the due diligence very easy as well.
I mean, that's very interesting because you've basically boiled down your entire fundraise journey into like the very simple terms, like you said. It's just all about the customers. Are they paying? Is there scope for growth? And no matter what happens today, it is still very relevant. And I think in a way, this takes us back to the conversation around if something is not working, you try new things, you pivot, go to where your customers are, which seems to be what you did right, and then ended up working well for the fundraising. Thanks for that. Can you tell us about some of the challenges and hurdles you faced along the way, and how this impacted you, how you overcame them?
It's been, as we mentioned in the beginning, it's been a long journey. We started with 2 people. We are 150 50 people company now, and we were not kind of the hyper growth company that everybody hopes for when they start. Problem there with that is that if you are not growing, let's say 100% every year, but you're growing 30%, then you still need the funding to arrive. But then at the same time, the funding is difficult to arrive because there is no growth. So basically what happened over the last 12 years, and I give credit to my business partner for that, we were in a continuous fundraise. Literally, for the last 12 years, we were constantly raising money. And that creates, as you can imagine, that's not easy. We went through some very difficult moments. We went through some crazy moments in 2020 and 2021. Let me tell you, I will open a bracket here and tell you a funny story there. Actually, 2020, 2021, where everybody on this planet Earth was actually getting money from, I don't know, from somewhere. It was an absolute craziness. We were not able to raise. During this period, we were not able to raise because we had a very steady 30-35% growth rate. All right. And people did not buy that. It was better for us not to have revenue than to have revenue running in 30% or 40%, right? It was a really bizarre time. And then you really start questioning. So everybody's raising money. I mean, everybody's becoming the unicorn, right? It was a crazy time. And then we are struggling, we are pitching. I mean, it was such a struggle where everybody was enjoying pretty much free cash. We did not manage to raise a significant amount of money during that period.
Must have been painful.
It was extremely painful, to be honest. It was more of a, again, what are we doing wrong here? It's been 10 years. At that point, it was 10 years. It's 10 years. You start questioning yourself.
But you pulled through. Thankfully, you pulled through. After all the years of hard work, you ended up with what the Wall Street Journal says is an $100 million acquisition. How did that come about? At what point did you realize, we've been on this journey, we should get acquired? Did you plan the journey, or did the offer just fall in your lap? So tell us more about how that came about.
So we've obviously over the years we've had different approaches from different companies, and they all fell through for different reasons. And I mean, we had at least 4 or 5 different offers over the years, and again, there was something that was missing. And it was, again, 10 years, coming back to that crazy period that I was describing before, you really started questioning yourself. Am I doing the right thing? What do I do? Et cetera, et cetera. And at that point in time, we decided to onboard a banker. So we onboarded a fairly popular firm to help us with the sale. I cannot recommend this enough, right? During the previous approaches, we were trying to close the deal by ourselves. But I think if you have, like in our case, a fairly mature company with 100 employees, still a small company, but we have a history of activities, 10 years, 12 years. I would recommend hiring an advisor, a top tier advisor, even though the fees that these guys are charging might not be very appealing in the beginning. I would highly recommend using them because they take a lot of the, I would say, emotion out of the deal. After 10 years, there is a lot of emotions. I would definitely recommend recommend an advisor. So we got an advisor. We were approached. Sorry, we were presented with 10 different options, 10 different acquirers. We got offers from 5 of them, for which we were very grateful. And there was a wide variety of offers, right? One was stock only, one was cash only, different turnout periods, etc., etc. What was really appealing about IPG was that they were, as a big company, they're in a crossroad at the moment, right? The advertising industry is getting disrupted. And what they're really trying to do is to beef up their commerce offering, right? Where we play very well. So that's how kind of the marriage happens. They had a need for a company like us, and we wanted kind of an acquirer that will help grow our company, but not only grow kind of revenue, but grow the technology, right? So IPG, another appealing point about IPG was that they were looking to develop and further grow our technology. And yes, there is a concern about us growing clients, but that wasn't the driver, right? They're a $10 billion organization, public listed organization, as you mentioned, and we are significantly smaller than that. Let's leave it at that. Just a word of advice here: if some big acquirer gets stuck on kind of a revenue growth for your particular startup, I mean, I would think twice, right? They should not be acquiring you for the revenue. They should be acquiring you for the technology and for the know-how of the team. And then ideally, they will help you actually scale that technology to a much bigger level. That was the whole point. It's using the resources of the bigger company to make sure that our tech is leveraged. So if somebody starts focusing too much on revenue growth and have the company that gets acquired have very steep sales targets, I would be very cautious on how negotiate milestones. It needs to be a mutual bond rather than just an acquisition for sales growth.
I mean, you kind of answered the next question I had, which was around this framework I have when talking about acquisitions. I have these 3 concentric circles, which talks about the only reasons one company buys another one. The first is, traction. So either revenue, profitability, any of those things. The second is technology, product, and know-how. And then the third is the team. But you've answered that question that for a much bigger company buying a small startup, it almost always works best when it's in that bucket of technology, products, and people, those 2 circles, and not so much the revenue. I can imagine if we were 2 startups competing with each other around the same stage, if I were funded, I could want to buy another one and then combine the revenue, and then it makes sense. But for a public company,
yeah, that's right.
So, but it really makes sense now. Thanks for flagging that. For a much bigger company, buying a small one, it almost always has to be around the product and know-how. So, okay, makes sense. And that's something I would like to emphasize to listeners, to people reading or wanting to sell their company. If you want to sell to a bigger company, which almost always comes with bigger paydays, focus on the tech and the product, and look for who wants what you have. Awesome.
If I can add one point here is, and this is very important. So in our case, we are not $100 million revenue company, right? We're significantly lower revenue. But if you as an entrepreneur running a small company go and have a very steep revenue target as part of your milestone journey post acquisition, and that's pretty much all your upside is tied to that, I would actually think twice surrendering the control of your company. And because it's a big company, there is a lot of politics in the big company, right? They might tell you that they'll help you with the sales cycle, and then they'll have their own salespeople going and selling your company. That is not going to happen. So be very careful when you're negotiating your milestones to be as tightly written as possible regarding sales growth and sales milestones, because that's something that can burn the founder significantly. Again, if all your upside from the acquisition is tied to that, you have to be extremely careful. Big companies, you get really lost in the bureaucracy quite easily, and then there is a lot of frustration.
Thanks for that. You mentioned the bankers being extremely helpful with the process. From mandating them to the offer coming in and the deal completing, how long did that process take?
So that's another thing folks need to realize. It takes time because people are, you have a lot of decision makers on the other side. For us, it took 12 months from the first meeting to actually closing the deal. So it was about 12, 13-month journey. So you as a founder need to make sure that you have enough money to sustain yourself during that period of time. At least 12 months.
Was this 12 months? And was this from the first meeting with IPG, or yes, was this first meeting with IPG to closing, or mandating the bankers to closing?
So the process was we met with the bankers, we created the value proposition. Obviously, we had a lot of materials there. That took a month, let's say, and then the first meeting with IPG happened within 2 months of starting the process.
Not too bad. I mean, I've had 36-month journeys, so I would say that it could be worse. That's the key message. It takes a long time and it could be worse. Thanks for that. Thanks for sharing the inner details of how that works. Maybe the last question on the process is, through that whole process, from beginning, deciding to sell to getting the sale through, what part of this was the most frustrating, or which part will you say founders really need to focus on?
I think the most important part of it is to make sure that you don't fool yourself, and you always need to consider that this thing will fail and it will fall through. And if you put your kind of all your eggs in one basket, then you're more likely then to kind of be in a position to surrender certain things at the end, because the milestones that are actually extremely important and where you get the most of your upside, the milestone negotiations that happen at the end of the journey. So if you're not in a position of strength at the end of that journey, then you'll give a lot of concessions, which means that all these 12 years have been up for absolutely nothing, right? So it's extremely important to make sure that you kind of, obviously you run the process, but just keep an eye on your clients. Make sure the clients are there, make sure they're happy, make sure you're getting paid, make sure that new clients are there. So to show to folks that, listen, you are valuable and we really like you, but it's okay if we decide to shake hands and move on at the end.
Before we wrap up, so what's next? How do you see the next few years, maybe as part of IPG or otherwise? What's next for you?
So there are a lot of exciting developments on our front. So IPG itself is getting acquired by another company. So there is a lot of change that is happening already. But we have a very clear kind of a mission and idea of what we have to do, and we are fully hands down at the moment and develop our product offering. I wouldn't say there is nothing significantly changed in our roadmap after the acquisition. if nothing else, it probably got a little bit narrower and more focused, which we really like. So we are full on at the moment.
Thanks for that. Yasin, but every single company you've worked for has got acquired. That is, yeah, right? I mean, am I right? Like every single company you've worked for has got acquired. That is a remarkable fact. Maybe in the next life, if I see you go work somewhere, I need to go work there as well.
To be fair, I don't want to kind of overstate my importance. I'm sure I had some role to play in those acquisitions, but in both companies before IntelligenceNODE, where there were great founders, Justin Trenner and David Poole. And after that, in Expand Research, they had a great team of partners that were actually kind of doing a fantastic job. So I can't really claim a lot of glory for any of these acquisitions, but I'm extremely grateful for those individuals for kind of making it part of their journey.
What will be one word that summarizes your experience as an entrepreneur?
Patience.
So you're telling me there's no get rich quick. I can't start a company, just to get rich tomorrow.
I mean,
very just.
I really wanted this, to be honest, when I started this journey. And I wish everybody to have the unicorn after 3-4 years. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case for us. But I think patience is key. Patience is key to kind of to sustain the relationship with the same person, with the same co-founder for 12 years. Patience is key to make sure that you negotiate a good deal during an acquisition. Patience is key.
In terms of managing a startup for this long and then your journey going forward, what's your favorite KPI, your financial KPI that you obsess over?
Oh, for financial KPIs, to be honest, they change. They change depending on where we are, right? Immediately after a fundraise, the KPIs, we have to grow the recurring monthly revenue. When we are getting towards the end of the funds or funds exhaustion, right? Then we start looking at profitability. I think that as a founder, you have to be flexible and you have to move, with where you are at the moment. You can't get stuck on a particular metric and say, I'm going to do that, and then whatever happens, because if you focus on revenue and you don't focus on profitability, and you see that your fundraise is not going well, then you're just gonna run out of money at the end. So you have to be very flexible with different metrics. And to be honest, maybe that's why we didn't manage to get a early exit, because we didn't go all in. We were quite flexible. We changed with the circumstances. And to be honest, I can see a very valid reason of folks of, raising, let's say 10 million and burning through this. And if it happens, it happens, right? I get it. I see a reason for that, right? You kind of cut your losses and we move on. We were not that kind of a startup, and it turned out well for us.
And then final question. You've had an exit, so definitely there's some financial rewards there. But if on top of that, you either had another exit or you won a lottery, what will they mean for you? Will you stop building? Will you start another company? Will you just sail off into the sunset? What will that mean for you if you had more money than you knew what to do with?
I have these conversations with my business partner, with my wife. I think I wouldn't. First of all, to answer your question, I wouldn't do anything different. And I know it might sound kind of, but he's just saying this kind of thing. But I experienced a liquidity event. It was a great liquidity event, and nothing changed for me. I'm not going to go and buy a new boat, let's say, and kind of go on a world tour or any of these things. That doesn't attract me. I'm still maybe I'm still processing what has happened, but I haven't found the answer to kind of what's next for me, or what would I do next with my time and effort. I think that I like what I'm doing now, and definitely I'm not going boating.
Maybe some fancy half marathon or marathons, at least to yeah. Do you see that
Absolutely.
happening?
I already done one. I went to Napa Valley and did the Napa Valley Marathon, which was my first and last marathon, I think. But and then we did another kind of interesting marathon, going through different wineries with my brother. That was very exciting.
So leaving us with something to dream about, something to hope for. Thank you very much, Yasen. This has been very, very insightful, and I hope everyone listening finds it so. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.